for staying with us. Our panelists already lined up, so let's convene today's summit. And tonight, joining us from Ukraine, a member of the Ukrainian Parliament, Maria Yovanova. Hello there from Kyiv, journalist Mary McAuliffe, and here in our Tel Aviv studios, journalist Nicole Yochin. Hello all, and thank you so very much for coming on the show tonight. Our main topic: who is behind the killing of the prominent military blogger in St. Petersburg, and does it matter, really? Let's take a closer look. Pick it up from there.
A blast tore through a cafe in the centre of St. Petersburg, killing pro-war blogger Vladlen Tatarsky and injuring 32 others. The Kremlin has declared the death a terror attack and is pointing the finger at Ukrainian special services and agents with links to jailed opposition figure Alexei Navalny. In turn, Kyiv is blaming political infighting in Russia for the blast, while Navalny's team denies the accusations. On the front line, the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group filmed a video raising the flag over Bakhmut City Hall in tribute to the killed blogger, saying the city was now Russian in a legal sense. Ukraine brushed off the claims, saying Russia's very far from taking the city. Tatarsky's death is the second high-profile murder of a war supporter since the start of the invasion. Last August, the car carrying the daughter of ultra-nationalist philosopher and war ideologue Alexander Dugin was bombed. Ukraine has denied any involvement. Will Russia see more such incidents on its soil? Who was behind the attacks? And as the invasion stalls, is the conflict turning into a forever war?
So let's get to it. Is the Russian invasion of Ukraine turning into a forever war? As always, we begin with our quick fire round. 30 seconds each to let your initial stance on the matter, and we pick it up from there. So Maria Yovanova, please take the lead. Your 30 seconds are on.
Thank you. Good evening. And I'd like to say that Russia wants to make it a forever war, so that it can wear down the West. And that is why I think that the strategy of Ukraine and our international friends is to send more weapons to Ukrainian armed forces and end the war as soon as possible. It's in our common interest. That is why we need weapon and we need speed. We need to simplify the procedures.
Mary McAuliffe, your take.
Well, forever might be a lot. There's certainly indications from both sides that neither of them expect this war to end anytime soon. And we've seen a lot of this talk about a forever war ramping up after we just passed the 1-year mark. But really, this war has been going on since 2014 in the East. And we've seen both sides continuing to fight there with heavy losses on both sides. You can see that in Bakhmut, also all of this ammunition that's wasted, all these men who have died fighting for this town, which is really of little strategic importance. It's likely the war will continue in this way in the East for a long time.
Nicole Yochin, your thoughts?
Good evening. I believe this war wouldn't be forever because in the end the money will end, the support will end, and the ammunition will end. So I think both sides, I mean the West and Russia, of course, Ukraine is a victim, but both sides, they are playing a geopolitical war, geopolitical game, but in the end, they will need to recognize that it's not good for them to continue that because they are losing too much and they are winning too less.
Okay, and on that note, dear panelists, let's feel free to interact, of course. So let's begin with a simple question, Maria Yovanova. Is Kyiv going to launch a counter-offensive this very spring?
I will continue that. We have already, first of all, we have 9 years of the war and more than 1 year of full-scale invasion. And we have seen also Transnistria, Abkhazia, Crimea, Donbass. So these are Russians' hot spots that they activate whatever they want, and also to keep the West alliance, on its toes. So I think that is why we need to end this. That is why we need more weapons. That is why now it's cheaper than it will be, because Putin, he regrouped and he will go further. And that is why to give more weapons to Ukraine, to more sanctions to Russia, that's the way to do. That needs to defend also to give Ukraine the weapons and not only to defend ourselves, our country, but also the West democracies. And also we really need to be very to provide very decisive decisions that Russia has to pay very high price via sanctions on its natural resources, import and trading limitations, because we cannot see still this, for example, sanctions on atomic fuel. And believe me, just 2 days ago on Friday, I came back. I was 20 kilometers from Bakhmut, and Bakhmut, it's Ukrainian town. Yes, and if you will look to Bakhmut, that's what Putin would like to do the same way with the whole Ukraine. That is why we have to fight further, and we need the support of our international friends, because the international order is on the decision to restore the international order on the battlefield in Ukraine.
But Mary McAuliffe, how much more can the West give Ukraine, and perhaps more, not less important, will it want to?
It's not only about weapon long range. Oh, sorry.
I think the West, absolutely. I don't think the question is will they want to. I think all indications right now are most Western countries who have already pledged money and weapons will continue to do so. They also don't want to have pledged all these ammunitions and all of this support if they do not end up winning in the end. This is also the same dilemma that Vladimir Putin is in. At what point do you end this war? No real gains are being made. But still, they are so entrenched in this dynamic. And the question for the West, and especially the United States, but really the entire Western coalition that is supporting Ukraine, they have essentially depleted the global stocks of ammunition that have been building up since World War II. They're spending massive amounts of ammunition in this war. Ukraine is spending between 4,000 to 7,000 shells every day. Russia between 20,000. And there are some countries who haven't yet given. The U.S. is trying to reach out to them and try and convince them to give. But then, of course, Russia is also doing the same. So there can always be more ammunition produced. This is what the U.S. is trying to do, to try to ramp up its supply. But there are, of course, issues with supply chain that everybody is facing. So the question is, if they're going to keep going through ammunition at this rate, how long is that sustainable? And how long will the global public support be with them to continue to do so?
Nicole Yochin, how long?
I think they should stop it now, but unfortunately, both sides, they can't just stop, because this game went too far, and now one of the sides need to be more reasonable and just stop this war. I think that's the only solution, because otherwise it will be not just the destructions of Ukrainian cities and of Ukraine, it will be the destruction of Europe, maybe of the whole world, or most of the parts of the world. Because if it continues, maybe someone will push the button and nuclear weapons will enter this game. And then I don't know how we can stop it. So better stop it now, and better not talk about this war as some kind of game.
I want us to circle back to the Tatarsky killing. Will Russia be seeing more such incidents on its soil? Let's take a listen to what the Wagner Group founder had to say and pick it up from there.
I don't know the details of the incident at the moment. I have only been informed that unfortunately Vladlen Tatarsky has died. I am not aware of any other details. Indeed, the patriotic movement Cyberfront Z held various seminars at the cafe. This tragedy probably happened at a seminar. As for the death of Daria Dugina, yes, it's similar. But I would not blame the Kiev regime for these actions. I think there is a group of radicals who are hardly connected to the government.
Maria Ionova, who killed Tatarsky? And does it matter really when it comes to the impact on the dynamics of the standoff between Russia and Ukraine?
Sorry to say, I don't care. More killed Russians, more close our victory. Because unfortunately, they're killing hundreds of our Ukrainian citizens every day, more than 13 months. And when our honorable guest is saying, like, both sides. It's Russia attacked Ukraine. It's Russia tortured, raped, and killed thousands of Ukrainian people, not only military guy. And we have already more than, if I'm not mistaken, 30 journalists who have been killed, Ukrainian journalists, and not only who were doing their job, but also who has volunteered and started to defend their country. And if we are talking about how to stop the war, when we are talking about delivering the weapon, yes, we understand it's not about only weapon, it's about maintenance, it's about supplies. But the irony is that up till now, Ukraine has been receiving enough to withstand, and we really also appreciate all the support what we have received, but not enough to win. And this is really a matter of principle. And when also you are saying that, and I also hear a lot of questions that that the West has started to deliver more tanks, for example. Yes, but we have got only dozens of tanks, but we need hundreds. And also what is interesting, that Ukrainian armed forces, they destroyed 3,600 tanks of Russia. So it is to show that our Ukrainian armed forces, they're capable to win and capable, to get away, to kick out Russians from our territory of Ukraine.
So is the end of the war, Mary, lays in a decisive military victory?
It's unlikely that's the way this war is going to win. As we said, this war has been ongoing in the Donbass region since 2014. It is so entrenched in some of the people who are living in Donbass. I was there the other day in Kramatorsk, which is just 20 miles from Bakhmut, and it really is sort of a 9-to-5 war. And these men have been fighting this war for so long, it seems. They fight during the day. They go back home to their families and to the apartments that they're living, that it's become such a routine for them. The question is when, if ever, Putin is ever going to decide that these 4 regions that he annexed are not part of Russian territory, that they do belong to Ukraine. But if we are this far into the war, if we're this far into the operation, it's hard to see a situation that he decides just to give up on these regions. I don't think anything will stop him until he's accomplished that, or till there's possibly a new leader in Russia. But even within the people itself in Russia, I mean, the war propaganda, all independent media has been essentially effectively shut down. So the support of the Russian people, many of them are with this operation. Tatarski's killing and the killing last year, sort of just beginning of cracks of sort of opposition that can be displayed in Russia, and really the only way that's possible. And it's really just quite a deadly way, but that's the only way the Russian people really are able to express this. But
Nicole Yochanan, before we take a break, wrap it up for us.
I think that this war should stop, and the way for that is that maybe some country as China will take the lead and will try to make some kind of deal between both sides, even a deal of a peace for a half year, I don't know, but something like that should happen, because the United States is not taking the lead as it used to take in other conflicts, maybe because here it's too much involved. So some other nations should be more responsible and help to end this conflict.
Okay, on that note, we do need to take a short break, but when we get back, what does it mean now when Russia is chairing the UN Security Council? Any concrete implications, or just a very, very symbolic move there? We're taking a short break, and we'll be right back. Back to the summit. Still with us, Ukrainian Parliament member Maria Ionova, journalist Mary McAuliffe, and journalist Nicole Yochanan. Thank you so very much for staying with us. We're also staying on topic, but before we get back to our conversation, as Russia assumes the presidency of the United Nations Security Council, is war the new normal? Let's take a listen.
Unfortunately, we also have news that is obviously absurd and destructive. Today, a terrorist state began to chair the UN Security Council. Yesterday, the Russian army killed another Ukrainian child, a 5-month-old boy. His name was Danilo. He was from Avdiivka in Donbass. The parents are wounded. Russian artillery, one of the hundreds of artillery attacks that the terrorist state carries out every day. And at the same time, Russia is chairing the UN Security Council. It's hard to imagine anything that proves more the total bankruptcy of such institutions.
So another quick fire around 30 seconds each. Russia chairing the UN Security Council, a symbolic blow or just, the way the international community's cookie crumbles? Mary McAuliffe, take the lead, please.
I think both, absolutely. That's essentially the way the UN Security Council was set up in the post-war era after World War II. That is essentially, people don't like to acknowledge this, especially supporters of the international system, but it is designed to be ineffective. So as much as Ukraine and Western allies might not like it, it's exactly the way the system was set up to create one bloc from having a monopoly of power from one side versus the other to create a bipolar world. So the idea was to spread the power, and that's exactly what we're seeing happening. So it's functioning as it's supposed to.
Nicole Jochen, as it's supposed to?
Yeah, sure, definitely. In the past century, how many wars the other members of this council started wars, how many bombs they dropped on the villages, on countries, on people, how many children died because of those countries that also sitting in this council. I think China and Russia dropped less bombs in the past century than the other countries.
Maria Nova, your thoughts?
A shame day for the institution, and Russia shall not be presiding in the UN Security Council. So this year, I can say that we can only call the UN Security Council members to boycott the Russian presidency, because this country has violated each provision of the statute of UN, and that is why it's a question to UN: is it capable still to function?
And on that note, let's feel free to interact, of course. So is the UN meaningless? Could the US have done more to block this move? Or again, is it just the way it is, Maria?
But to boycott and to say the truth, and we have to be honest, first of all, to be honest with ourselves and between each other, that there is a necessity also for the sanctions against Russians, and not only as we hear, but also, for example, Rosatom and the entire nuclear sector. That is why I mentioned it before of Russia, because you also see that Putin again started to blackmail the West with the nuclear power. And I think that usually his behavior is, it means that he's losing the battle.
Yeah.
That is why every time when he's losing the battle, every time he started to threaten with the nuclear weapon. But to coming back to UN Security Council, so how can the country to be the chair like Russia, when it is in violation of UN international treaties? And it's not only on conventions, but it's including different issues. It's also about rules, international laws on atomic energy.
Yeah.
Because they are blackmailing and they occupied the Energodar Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. That is why, do not be afraid. I mean, it's just his weak position. I mean, be more decisive and more operative and active in helping Ukraine. Because when I say that we have only one way to fight, it's not that we would like to fight, believe us. I think that Ukraine now is the country number one who desires peace. But we will not have this peace while Russian soldiers, tanks, missiles are on our territory and killing our people. And that is why, believe us, we also, first of all, we would like to have peace.
Yeah. And Nick, you're listening to Maria. What do you think?
I think that Russia definitely shouldn't invade and conduct this war in Ukraine. Yeah, but it started it for its reasons. And now it's a time to think how to end it, and not to think who is right and who is wrong and what are the morals, because that's how countries work. They never do moral things, because each of them conducting wars, they are killing people in those wars, and that's how the world of our planet is working. So we shouldn't be so naive and think that Russia invented those kind of wars. And now it's time to think how to stop it.
And on that note of not being too naive, Mary McAuliffe, is Putin just stalling until the U.S. presidential elections?
Well, that way he'd also be taking a gamble. I think he certainly has an idea of a candidate on the Republican side who might like to take over. Maybe that might have made it a little bit easier for him to continue in this war, to reach some kind of agreement. At least that's what Donald Trump liked to brag, that there would be no war if he was in power. But that is still 2 years from now. There are still many Russians who are dying every day. There are still many Ukrainians who are dying every day by this war. I don't think that's the main factor in his consensus. But when it comes to the UN, there's very little that the UN Security Council can actually do when it comes to stopping a war. The UN can put out norms and statements about what it would like to do and issue resolutions and sanctions, but it doesn't really have an effective way to actually govern itself or to enforce its governance. It can lay out a system and a structure of what this international law system that we can all subscribe to, but at the end of the day, it belongs to each state to decide what they're going to do and whether or not they're going to abide by it. Maria also mentioned nuclear agreements and things like that, but that's exactly what we've seen with Iran, is how to force Iran to a negotiating table, how to force them to come into the fold when it comes to the international community. It's very, very difficult to try and get a rogue state to subscribe to international laws or norms or institutions. And I don't think we should forget that all of this drama about Russia becoming the president of the UN Security Council this week, they were also the president last year when they decided to invade
the same
sovereign country.
On February 2022.
Because it's really very painful to hear like that it's not the time to hear who's right and who's wrong. I'm sorry, but it is very obvious when we are asking still such questions that it's and also like why we need agreements, why we need rules. I mean, there are rules. There is a democracy. It's also procedures and rules, and that is why really democracy, it's a peace. And that is why I think that we have to be more brave and to say the things as it is. And when we are talking about Russia in UN, it's like, letting the forks into the hand cage and then wondering why there are dead chickens. It's that is why I think that this is historical time, an opportunity to say dictators and to stop dictators and to renovate international order.
Nick?
I absolutely agree that we have laws and there's a reason for it, but that being said, the point remains that you can't force people to all play by the same rules. This isn't a schoolyard where you can have a principal who tells somebody who's right or wrong. We can all issue statements that say, we agree Russia is wrong for invading another country, but at the end of the day, the international community has its hand tied in what it can really do. But the West can and will continue to give weapons and try to do what it can to stop the war. But at the end of the day, the only man who has the power to stop that war versus just all out defeating them militarily is Russia itself.
Nick, in the 20 seconds we have left, wrap it up for us.
I think we should stop thinking about it like some kind of Hollywood movie, that we have the bad guy and the good guy, and the good guys should win in the end. Unfortunately, in the real world, real politics, it doesn't work like that, and both sides just need to sit down and agree on some kind of peace and drop their bombs.
On that note, this is all the time we have for tonight, but obviously to be continued. Nicole Yochim, Mary McAuliffe, and Maria Ionova, thank you so very much for your time and insight. We appreciate it. And we're taking our last